Hello, everyone. Today is the 40th anniversary of John Milius's Conan the Barbarian hitting theaters back in 1982. Definitely one of the most underrated and influential movies of the last 40 years. You look at all the great directors of the last 40 years, all of them were inspired by this movie in some way. Tarantino, Robert Eggers, Gendy Tartakovsky, even. All of these guys were influenced by this movie. Just like they were influenced by, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars. This movie just visually, musically, narratively, just everything about it was awesome and unique. And the movie still holds up amazingly 40 years later. The special effects, even the fighting, just everything about this movie is metal and badass. And naturally, this movie I think got people into Conan, the character, the literary character. Basically, how I came across this movie was I don't even freaking remember. I think had to have been about 20 years ago when I first saw this, but I watched it in my bedroom and I had like a freaking 14 by 14 inch television. And the movie didn't really impress me all that much, like most movies I saw on that screen. But it was when I bought it on DVD and I had my big 58-inch widescreen television. That's when I was able to really appreciate the movie, and it just knocked me on my ass. This movie is just so fucking awesome. It's Conan the Barbarian, man. What else do you need? And this was Arnold Schwarzenegger's first big hit as an actor, and this is pretty much what launched him into stardom. The movie only made, I guess, about 70 million when it came out, which, was pretty good, especially for its genre and for a $20 million budget. Not too bad, not too bad. It wouldn't be, I think, a big hit until it got on video, and then that's when, everybody knew about this movie. And it was probably hurt by a weak, kind of kid-friendly sequel, Conan the Destroyer. Don't really know it. What was his name? Dino De Laurentiis, the producer, was thinking on that one. I guess he just saw all of these sword and sandal and sword and sorcery, movies being made, and he was like, oh, let's try and make this more kid friendly so we can get toys and all that kind of stuff. But Conan the Destroyer is an okay movie, but it's nothing, nothing compared to Conan the Barbarian. John Milius's masterpiece, as I would definitely call it. I know a few people who haven't seen this movie, and I've made a few people watch this movie who hadn't seen it, and they all love it. What's not to love? It's masculine as hell, but the lady, Valeria, is a badass too. And yeah, it's just good characters, good story, straight up classic revenge tale of, a man who seeks revenge for the murder of his family and the loss of his innocence, the loss of his world, basically. And it's just a classic tale of that. And just how it looks and the music. Basil Palladorius' score is, I think, definitely in the top 30 best soundtracks of all time in movie history, easily. Even the Conan video game, even though the soundtrack in that game was made by the guy who did the soundtrack to the God of War games, it's just like, come on, dude. yeah, come on. So I would even play the Basil Palladorius soundtrack over the game soundtrack. So, and it fit perfectly, of course. And even in the newer Conan game, can't remember, was it Conan Exiles or whatever, their soundtrack definitely mimics Basil Palladorius's, which is a smart move. Like, yeah, come on. That's Conan's theme song. And, it's just a great soundtrack. Great soundtrack. Sets the mood, sets the scene. Basically every single scene plays to the music and vice versa. So, perfect score. Arnold, he's definitely learning how to act, but, he was good. And it's like what John Milius said, like, if we didn't get Arnold Schwarzenegger to play Conan, we would have to build an actor to be Arnold Schwarzenegger and Conan. We would have to build him to make it happen. So, he was perfect for this role. And the accent and everything, that's why I didn't like the actors who did Conan's voice in video games and stuff. Just, I mean, it's like, come on. Arnold should be the voice of Conan. He is Conan now and forever. So, yeah, I mean, hell, he even still carries around Conan's sword every now and then, which, God, I want to buy that sword one day. But reproductions of that sword are quite expensive. The Atlantean sword, yeah, I've seen them go from anywhere from like $2,400 to $4,000, like the ones actually made from the casts of the original movie props are like extremely expensive. But yeah, I mean, of all the swords sewn from movies, that's my number one. Yeah. I wonder what my number two would be. Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question for another time. I can't. Well, I have a couple of the Lord of the Rings swords. I mean, those are a must. What are some other good movie swords? I like the swords in The Princess Bride. The rapiers, they're really good. The Man in the Iron Mask got some good rapiers too. But yeah, like barbarian swords and stuff. Yeah, I mean, Conan, yeah, Conan's got the best. I'm sure there's tons of other great movie swords. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. If you could think of any, definitely comment in the comments. I definitely want to hear from you guys and hear what you think about this classic movie. I mean, I'm basically just going to be rambling on about Conan for a little while. This movie got me into the books. Robert E. Howard, great writer, great writer. I mean, his prose is excellent, and he's just able to tell a story so beautifully and go into the details and set the scene, if you will. Like, my favorite Conan story is the Scarlet Citadel? Yeah, that one. I just love that one. Basically, Conan is king, and he gets captured, I think, during a battle, and he's taken to a dungeon with a giant snake, which they reference in the movie, of course. And he's able to get free, but he's blind because it's pitch black. I mean, it's a dungeon, and Robert E. Howard writes it so well that it's so creepy and terrifying because Conan's basically having to feel his way through this dungeon, and there's like holes in the ground that fall into bottomless pits, and he's hearing creepy ass noises from down the hall, and it's really, really terrifying. And Conan's a superstitious character, so I mean, his mind is just picturing all kinds of horrible creatures and stuff. And yeah, I just love Robert E. Howard's writing. Every story is great, pretty much. Some of them are amazing. Some are really good. Some, just classic pulp from the 1930s. I mean, definitely if you get a chance, read the Robert E. Howard stories. There's not too many of them. I own all three of the Del Rey or Tor books. I can't remember the publisher. I think it was Del Rey, wasn't it? But it doesn't matter. Del Rey owns Tor or vice versa. But yeah, definitely get your hands on those. The artwork is nice. I mean, just great stuff. And I absolutely love the Dark Horse comics. I think I own almost all of the graphic novels. I'm just missing like a handful of them, maybe like 4 or 5. I never checked out the Marvel Conan comics. I'm sure they're good. Maybe a little crazier because most of those are from the 70s. I think the Savage Sword of Conan and stuff. But yeah, I definitely loved the Dark Horse ones because they took the stories from Robert E. Howard and basically connected them. Like, how did Conan get from this story to the next one? So they did it chronologically from the time of his birth up until he's basically King Conan. So definitely get your hands on those. I think Volume 0, Born on the Battlefield, is the best one, but the first couple are really great. I think who was the artist? Timothy Truman, and the writer was Kurt Busiek, I think. Yeah, they were definitely the best pair, but the other guys are good too. I mean, just check them out. I think you'll love them. And, if you're into the novels, you're going to like the comics. And if you're into the comics, you're going to love the novels. So definitely check them out. And, the Conan video games, the one that pretty much bankrupted THQ, is really good. It's basically made to look like the Conan graphic novels because Dark Horse was coming out with those at the time, and it's a good game. I love the combat system. I think it's actually got the best combat system in video game history because you can pretty much fight any way you want to fight. You want to fight with a sword and shield, you can do that. If you want to fight with two-handed weapons, you can do that. If you want to be more of a grappler, you can do that. And it's extremely violent. Like, you can just do anything to your enemies in that game. Like, you can kick guys in the balls, you can cut them right down the middle, you can literally tear a guy's esophagus out of his throat with your bare hands. I mean, it's just brutal, and there's like dozens and dozens of naked hot chicks in the game too, of course. So yeah, it's just great. And Conan Exiles looks really good. It's just, I don't have time to play a open world game like that, the survival MMORPG. I mean, it's, like 100-hour game. I would love it, but I just don't have time. Don't have time between work and traveling and all the stuff I'm doing. But I'm sure it's an awesome game. And it would be fun doing it in co-op and stuff, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, Conan, what a great IP, They've been talking about doing a Conan series for a while and maybe another Conan movie. I mean, the remake or reboot, whatever the hell that was, from, what was that, 2011, 2013? It was okay. I mean, I went into it thinking it was going to be a pile of burning shit, but it was okay. It was okay. Jason Momoa was all right. I mean, he looked like Conan. So, yeah. And Stephen Lang, I'm a big Stephen Lang fan. So, it was okay. But, again, nothing compared to John Milius's Conan the Barbarian. I mean, just so many people came together on that movie to make it great. Not just John Milius. Oliver Stone wrote the fucking screenplay. Like, come on. Back when he was one of the greatest writers in Hollywood history, in my opinion. Dino was a great producer. Arnold, I mean, come on. And the other cast members, I mean, Max von Sydow, James Earl Jones, Ben Davison, God, what's his name? Thorson. Yeah, I mean, just everybody in that movie. Jerry Lopez. I can't remember the name of the girl who played Valeria Sandal Bergman, maybe? Yeah, she was great. Great. Just everything came together. The production, the sets, holy shit. And the weapon designs, everything. I mean, this movie is so influential. I mean, you wouldn't have the Elder Scrolls if it wasn't for this movie. And, we got to thank Frank Frazetta for keeping the books alive. Because that's what, basically the stories were originally in pulp magazines in the 30s. And then they came out in books, I guess, in the 50s or 60s. And they had Frank Frazetta's beautiful artwork on the covers. And that's what got kids into them. And then it kind of grew. And then in the 70s, Marvel did their Conan comics. And it just kind of grew. And then by the early 80s, boom, you have a big movie. So definitely got to appreciate that. And, I mean, Frank Frazetta, God, I mean, that's Conan. That is Conan, yeah. I wish he had done more illustrations. I mean, imagine if he did like a full-on illustrated book of the Robert E. Howard stories. I mean, oh my God, how priceless that would be. But yeah, I mean, they've talked about doing series now. Like, I think Amazon was going to do it, then Netflix, and they've just all posted out. Because, I mean, you can't do Conan nowadays. It's just too un-PC, too masculine. I mean, one of the reasons why I love The Northman is because it's unapologetically masculine. Like, it's how movies used to be. And I'm kind of glad that they aren't doing a series right now because, I mean, imagine what Netflix would do to Conan. I mean, they would take his balls away. They would make the female characters the main characters. I mean, just look at what they did to Geralt in the Witcher series. I mean, it's not Geralt's show anymore, or it never was. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So let's give it a couple of, maybe a decade or so, and then maybe when the world has their testicles back, maybe we can do a Conan series. And people would love Conan nowadays. That's the thing. They would love the violence. They would love the adventure. They would love the sex and nudity. I mean, it's so ripe for adaptation. I mean, it's just, you get a great character actor who's a bodybuilder or whatever to play Conan. You get a great soundtrack. You get great scenery. You get great storytelling. I mean, just do the stories like they were in the Dark Horse series of comics. Just start at his birth and go all the way through. When he was a thief, when he was a scavenger, when he was raider, a pirate, when he's a warrior, when he's a general, when he kills the king and takes the crown for himself, when he's king, when he, the hour of the dragon, do all of that stuff. I mean, it's right there sitting, waiting for somebody to tell these stories. It's right there. It's right there. Go and do it. And then finish it off with how Conan dies. It's right there waiting to be told. It's crazy that they can't do this. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, we'll just have to wait for the perfect time, I guess. Yeah, I mean, this movie was so influential to so many creators. I mean, you look at Samurai Jack. I mean, that's the quietness, the stoicism, just everything with that show, the look. I mean, that's Conan. Yeah. You look at so many other movies, like hell, The Northman. There were a million references to Conan the Barbarian in this movie, and I loved every one of them. It was great. So I mean, this movie is so influential to so many great creatives. I mean, it's just, yeah. So I cannot say enough. I mean, I'm sure there's people who've said way better and way more about this movie than I, but I'm just, some crazy bald guy talking about a movie I love. And I'm so grateful for this movie. God bless John Milius. He's been in bad health for a long time. And Arnold, I mean, I wish the two of them had gotten together and made a third and final one. But, oh well. But anyway, Arnold, you will always be Conan. John Milius, you're a great writer, great director. God bless. And everyone else who worked on this movie, you guys really made a classic masterpiece. So thank you for that. And all the great creatives who were inspired by it, all the people who did the comics and everything. Just thank you. I love this stuff. I love this character. Love this genre. And I cannot wait to see how future generations are inspired by Conan, this movie, these books, these comics, and just, yeah, love it. So if you guys haven't seen the movie, definitely see the movie. If you haven't read the books, read the books. If you haven't read the comics, read the comics. And if you haven't heard the soundtrack, listen to the soundtrack. I mean, go play, I don't know, World of Warcraft. Go play some fantasy medieval setting. Hell, go play an Elder Scrolls game. Go play Skyrim with Basil Palladorius' soundtrack. I mean, go do it. You're going to love it. So take it easy, guys, and hail to the king, baby.